big city. The city lights reflect off the Burnett River. Working girls share an inside joke. It's Theme Time Radio Hour with your host, Bob Dylan.
Welcome once again to Theme Time Radio Hour. Got nothing to sell, nothing to promote, just a good friend stopping by. If this was the golden age of radio, I'd tell you to gather the kids around the radio. But it's a new day, and everybody in the family has different interests. As a matter of fact, everybody barely spends any time together, even when they're in the same room. But this week, we're going to put aside an hour to examine the most important of units, the family. As Thomas Jefferson put it, the happiest moments of my life have been the few which I have passed at home in the bosom of my family. Old TJ was a smart guy, so we're going to take a few ticks of the clock to look at heart and hearth. We'll look at family trees, family dinners, family planning, and family jewels. There'll be Dutch uncles, grandfather clocks, kissing cousins, sons of a gun, and maybe a couple of SOBs. It's all in the family. Let's get it going. Sometimes a family can be convoluted. Lots of different branches on a family tree. Here's a song where some of those branches converge by a country duo named Lonzo and Oscar. Those weren't their real names, of course. The real names were Lloyd George and Rollins Sullivan. They used to be the opening act for Eddie Arnold, but after this song scored for them, they were headliners on their own. By the way, Alonzo is a slang term, kind of derogatory, for someone who lives in a rural area. So here's that hillbilly and his partner Oscar with a song from 1947 called I'm My Own Grandpa. You might want to get pencil and paper out and take notes. It gets a little confusing.
It sounds funny, I know, but it really is so. Oh, I'm my own grandpa. I'm my own grandpa. I'm my own grandpa. It sounds funny, I know, but it really is so. Oh, I'm my own grandpa. Now many years ago when I was 23, I was married to a widder who was pretty as could be. This widder had a grown-up daughter who had hair of red. My father fell in love with her and soon they two were wed. This made my dad my son-in-law and changed my very life. My daughter was my mother 'cause she was my father's wife. To complicate the matter, even though it brought me joy, I soon became the father of a bouncing baby boy. My little baby then became a brother-in-law to Dad, and so became my uncle, though it made me very sad. For if he was my uncle, then that also made him brother of the widow's grown-up daughter, who of course was my stepmother. I'm my own grandpa. I'm my own grandpa. It sounds funny, I know, but it really is so. Oh, I'm my own grandpa. Father's wife then had a son who kept him on the run, and he became my grandchild, for he was my daughter's son. My wife is now my mother's mother, and it makes me blue, because although she is my wife, she's my grandmother too. I'm my own grandpa. I'm my own grandpa. It sounds funny, I know, but it really is so. Oh, I'm my own grandpa. Now if my wife is my grandmother, then I'm her grandchild, and every time I think of it, it nearly drives me wild. For now I have become the strangest case you ever saw. As husband of my grandmother, I am my own grandpa. I'm my own grandpa. It sounds funny, I know, but it really is so. Oh, I'm my own grandpa.
That was Lonzo and Oscar. I'm my own grandpa. And you may think things like that don't happen in the real world, but take the case of Bill Wyman, bass player for the Rolling Stones. On June 2nd, 1989, Bill was a spry 52 years old, and he married his 18-year-old girlfriend, Mandy Smith, who he met when she was 13. Bill's son, Stephen, was 28 years old and served as the best man. The marriage lasted 23 months, and they were divorced in 1991. Here's where it got weird. In 1993, Stephen, Bill's son, who was then 31, announced then he was going to marry Mandy's 49-year-old mother named Patsy. Now this would have made Mandy her ex-granddaughter-in-law, and Bill would have been, well, the wedding never happened, so I don't have to do all that figuring. But if it did, for starters, that would have made his son his stepfather, and it would have made his ex-wife his daughter. I guess they do things differently in England. Meanwhile, Jerry Lee Lewis gets in trouble for marrying his first cousin just because she was 13. Maybe I better not open this door. I'm not here to point fingers. Wait a second. I just can't let this go so easily. What if Bill and Mandy had a daughter, and who said they didn't? A few years later, Steve could have left Patsy for this daughter. He would basically have left his stepmother to marry his granddaughter. I really should have gotten a piece of paper and a pencil.
Today, we have the smallest family unit in history and the least stable. Our divorce rate has greatly increased. Does this mean that the family as an institution is on the wane? In search of an answer, let us take a closer look at family life today, both on the farm and in the city.
Caroline Dye was a conjure woman, a mistress of trickeration, a root worker, a putative hoodoo queen, and she's the subject of a song by the Memphis Jug Band. Will Shade wrote the song, and he sang in lead, along with Ben Ramey, Charlie Burse, and Hambone Lewis on the jug. Will Shade had such a strong regional accent that it says Aunt Caroline Dyer Blues on the label. There's no R in the name, it just sounds that way by the way Will says it. He put the lyrics to the song to one of his old melodies, Newport News Blues, which was a song about World War I. That explains the line about a battleship in the middle of a song about a conjured woman. Let's give a listen to the Memphis Jug Band, recorded on May 29th, 1930, at Caroline Dyer Blues.
I'm going to Newport News just to see Aunt Caroline Dyer. I'm going to Newport News just to see Aunt Caroline Dyer. What you gonna ask her, boy? She's a fortune-telling woman, oh Lord, and she don't tell no lie. I'm going to see her myself. I'm going to Newport News, partner. Catch a battleship across the doggone sea. I'm going to Newport News. Catch a battleship across the doggone sea. Because bad luck and hard way, oh Lord, sure don't agree with me. Aunt Caroline Dyer, she told me, son, you don't have to live so rough. Yes. Aunt Caroline Dyer, she told me, son, you don't have to live so rough. I'm gonna fix you up in mojo, oh Lord, so you can strut your stuff. Oh, to strut your stuff. She told me, son, these women don't mean you no good. Aunt Caroline Dyer, she told me, son, these women don't mean you no good. You let not know that. Said take my advice and don't monkey with none in your neighborhood. I am leaving in the morning. I don't want no one to feel blue. As I'm leaving in the morning, I don't want no one to feel blue. Well, all evening, I'm going back to Newport News and do what he cannot die told me to do.
On Caroline Dyer Blues, Memphis Jug Band. A number of years after recording this song, Will Shade was interviewed, and he talked about Aunt Caroline Dye. Here's the man himself talking about her.
She was a fortune teller, a two-headed woman. Could fix you so she'd call you, better come. She'd have to come and get you. That's the kind of woman she was. She had that much power before she died. White and color would go to her, bet on her. To be sick in the bed, she raised sick. Smart lady. She'd break all kind of spells you have. You could be walking like a hog or any kind of way. She could make you walk on two legs. That's the kind of woman she was. Aunt Caroline Dye, that was the worst woman in the world. He ain't had nothing here since. 7 sisters ain't nowhere with Aunt Caroline Dye. That's the only woman come here and broke the record with Voodoo.
Will Shade laying it down with Hoodoo.
For happy fun, family style, take a tip and keep your dial right here where you're listening. This wonderful weekend with your radio.
Francis J. Child put together a 5-volume work collecting English and Scottish popular ballads. These manuscripts and collected songs focus more on the stories, more on the words and the music. There's 305 of them, and like comedians, people who know a lot about them refer to them just by number. We're going to play one now, number 10. It's known by a lot of different names: Cruel Sister, The Bonny Broom, The Wind and the Rain, and as it's called here, Two Sisters. Here's the Brenner family, or as they're known collectively, Clonard, with Two Sisters.
The word two sisters side by side, sing I dum, sing I day. The word two sisters side by side, the boys are born for me. The word two sisters side by side, the eldest for young Johnny cried, I'll be true unto my love, if you'll be true to me. Johnny brought the youngest a gay gold ring, sing I dum, sing I day. Johnny brought the youngest a gay gold ring, the boys are born for me. Johnny brought the youngest a gay gold ring, he never brought the eldest a single thing. I'll be true unto my love, if you'll be true to me. Johnny brought the youngest a beaver hat, sing I dum, sing I day. Johnny brought the youngest a beaver hat, the boys are born for me. Johnny brought the youngest a beaver hat, the eldest didn't think much of that. I'll be true unto my love, if you'll be true to me. The melody sang on the mountain head, the boys are born for me. The melody was sang on the mountain head, the eldest sister was born dead. I'll be true unto my love, if you be true to me.
That was Clannad with number 10, Two Sisters. This is Theme Time Radio Hour. We did a show about mothers. We did a show about fathers. We didn't want to leave the rest of the relations out, because everybody's got a family, whether you want them or not. Winston Hubert McIntosh was born in 1944. He shortened his last name, just keeping the last syllable of it, and took the name Peter, and as Peter Tosh helped form the Wailers with Bob Marley. He was there from their first hit, Simmer Down, and stayed even after Marley went off for his solo career. He was a brilliant singer and one of the best guitarists to come out of Jamaica. In the 70s, he began his solo career. You know songs of his, like Legalize It, Steppin' Razor, and probably his biggest hit was a cover of a Temptations song, Walk and Don't Look Back. He was a proselytizer with the healing powers of marijuana. He said that it dissipated anger, relieves many tensions, and eliminates frustration. He was kind of like the Dr. Phil of ganja. Here's the Steppin' Razor himself, Peter Tosh, warning you about marital relations between members of the same family.
Shame and scandal in the family. Misery. Shame and scandal in the family. Trinidad, there was a family. Much confusion as you will see. It was the mama and the papa and the boy who was grown. Wanted to marry and the wife of his own. Found a young girl, suiting him nice. Went to his papa to ask his advice. His papa said, son, I have to say no. That girl is your sister, but your mama don't know. It's real. Shame and scandal in the family. It's real. Shame and scandal in the family. The week went by and the summer came down. Soon the best cook in the island he found. He went to his papa to make a day. His papa shook his head and to him he did say, you can't marry that girl, I have to say no. That girl is your sister but your mama don't know. It's real. Shame and scandal in the family. It's real. Shame and scandal in the family. Went to his mama and covered his head and told his mama what his papa had said. His mama, she laughed, she says, go man, go. Your daddy ain't your daddy, but your daddy don't know. It's real. Shame and scandal in the family. It's real. Shame and scandal in the family. It's real. Shame and scandal in the family. It's real. Shame and scandal in the family.
That was Peter Tosh. You have to ask yourself, are you married to your sister? In 1987, Peter Tosh met a tragic end as the result of a gunfight. Farewell, Peter. The Olympics are a vocal group who are almost as confusing as Bill Wyman, his 18-year-old bride, his 25-year-old son, and his ex-wife's 49-year-old mother. They put out so many records under so many different names that it's hard to keep track of them, so I'm not even going to try. It's them doing a song that Louis Armstrong used to sing in 1923. Here are the Olympics in 1960, and I wish I could shimmy like my sister Kate. Or as Sean Connery would say, I wish I could shimmy like my sister Kate. That was the Olympics. I don't know if you can actually do the shimmy to that song. The shimmy was a popular dance in the teens and 20s. It became a national craze when it was introduced in the Ziegfeld Follies Revue. If you want to do the shimmy, you hold your body still, except for your shoulders, which are alternated back and forth in a shimmying motion, ergo the name. Some other dance crazes that were popular before the twist include the Texas Tommy, the Turkey Trot. I always liked the Grizzly Bear. In that dance, the music would stop, and the dancers would yell out, "It's a bear!" There was the Bunny Hug, the Foxtrot, which was invented by Harry Fox, the Charleston, the Breakaway, the Lindy Hop, the Jitterbug, the Balboa, the Black Bottom, and the Conga. How many can you do? You know, people used to go into the studio when they had a song or two, when they had something to say. Nowadays, people just go into the studio because they got time to kill. They sit around, they order sushi, get some Starbucks, wait for inspiration to hit, and the records sound like that. There are some records that take 2 years to make, and you listen to them, and there's nothing on them. This record, I guarantee you, took less than 2 hours to make, and it wasn't even the A side. You be the judge. What would you rather listen to? A whole record about nothing, or a 45 called Little Sister?
Little sister, don't you? Little sister, don't you? Little sister, don't you kiss me once or twice, then say it's very nice, and then you run. Little sister, don't you do what your big sister done. Well, I dated your big sister, and I took her to a show. I went for some candy, along came Jim Dandy, and they snuck right out the door. Little sister, don't you? Little sister, don't you? Little sister, don't you kiss me once or twice, then say it's very nice, and then you run. Little sister, don't you do what your big sister done. Every time I see your sister. Well, she's got somebody new. She's mean and she's evil like that little old Mo Evil. Guess I'll try my luck with you. Little sister, don't you? Little sister, don't you? Little sister, don't you kiss me once or twice and say it's very nice and then you run. Little sister, don't you do what your big sister done. Well, I used to pull your pigtails and pinch your turned up nose, but you've been growing and baby it's been showing from your head down to your toes. Little sister, don't you? Little sister, don't you? Little sister, don't you kiss me once or twice and say it's very nice and then you run. Little sister, don't you do what your big sister done. Little sister, don't you do what your big sister done. Little sister, don't you do.
That was Little Sister, Elvis Presley, written by Doc Thomas and Mort Suman. This is Theme Time Radio Hour, where we're reminding you that families are like fudge, mostly sweet, but there's a few nuts. It's kind of ironic. We're doing our family show, and this is probably the least family-oriented song we've ever played. It is not for the pusillanimous listener, so if you're listening with young children, please send them out of the room for a few minutes. Unless you're listening in the car, in that case, turn the radio down for a while. Here's Boozy Chavez, and the L.A. women love Uncle Bud. Uncle Bud's a heck of a man.
20 years ago, Bud beat the shit out of Cotton Eye Joe. Uncle Bud. Some people say Uncle Bud is dead. The goddamn lie, he's taking bait. Uncle Bud. Daughter, her name is Dawn. Water like a butter, make a old man moan. Uncle Bud. The Bud got cotton and never been picked. The Bud got corn and never been shucked. The Bud got a daughter and never been fucked. Uncle Bud. Little bitch climbing up the water. Some son of a bitch done fuck my daughter. Uncle Bud. Gonna come off with a pack on his back. He bring more cock than he can pack. Uncle Bud. Down in Louisiana where the grass grow green, got more women than you ever see. Uncle Bud. The Bud got this, Uncle Bud got that. The Bud got a pecker like a big ball bat. Uncle Bud. Say it teeth and right, then made him sick. The goddamn lie, then knew then a hole, then run his brick. Uncle Bud.
A little bit of Zydeco wildness for Boozoo Chavez. Boozoo made a couple of records in the mid-50s, but he felt he'd been ripped off by the music industry, so he refused to perform publicly or record again till 1984. He spent his time racing championship racehorses in Shreveport and Lafayette.
Do remember simply this. Treat the other members of your family with the same respect and cordiality you would show your most treasured friend outside the family circle. This does not mean you should be stiff or formal. With your own family, you can relax. Be yourself. Just be sure it's your best self.
Not all members of the family are full of good advice. Some are just bad news, and they're going to get you in trouble, as in the case of this song by the Flamin' Groovies, a group formed in San Francisco by Cyril Jordan and Roy A. Loney, not to be confused with another famous product of San Francisco, Rice-A-Roni, or the Slim Gaylord saying, Right-A-Rooney. Here they are, the Flamin' Groovies, from their album Flamingo, or as I like to call it, Flaming O, Second Cousin.
But she's a sweet-ass bird full of sugar, and it's cool as inside her. She got the kind of a body owner to make a ball man kiss her. She got a degree in philosophy and a most like cherry cream. And when she calls the fish shows, well, you know I got a big teeth. Well, she's my second cousin. She's my second cousin. I'm gonna make my second cousin my first bride. Well, I'm rolling and I'm rolling and I'm rolling and I'm rolling. No. Well, I'm gonna see my baby and my baby's gonna follow me home. My mother says I'm crazy and my father says he will. Well, the boss thinks that things, but somehow we just don't care. We're gonna catch ourselves an airplane and gonna take off for the sky. And we won't touch down on Earth again till the next 4th of July. Well, she's my second cousin of a dual family side. And you say that loving her is I lie. Well, she's my second cousin.
The Flamin' Groovies, and they're gonna make their second cousin their first wife. We mentioned kissing cousins before. That phrase got its start down in the South, where it was about distant relatives who were well known enough to be greeted with a kiss. Nowadays, it means marital relations between members of the same extended family. It's not that unusual. Lots of people marry their cousins, and this is one list we can leave Bill Wyman out of. Queen Victoria married her first cousin, Prince Albert. Charles Darwin married his first cousin, Emma Wedgwood. We told you about Jerry Lee, but what about Franklin D. Roosevelt, who married his fifth cousin, Eleanor Roosevelt? I think once you get up to fifth cousin, it doesn't count. Edgar Allan Poe married his cousin, and Jesse James courted his cousin, Zerelda Mims, for 9 years, and finally made her his bride. 26 states allow first cousin marriages, and no European country prohibits it. It's also legal in Canada and Mexico. Leviticus 18 lists all forbidden sexual relationships. Cousin relationships are not included.
He was the nicest 18-year-old cousin a girl ever had. She was the nicest 16-year-old cousin a boy ever had. As a matter of fact, they were loving cousins. Loving cousins. From time to time, they kept reminding each other they were cousins and weren't supposed to do things like that. It was all fun and games in the beginning. What fun and what games. Loving cousins. Cousins are supposed to love each other, she said.
The next artist, a part of the Mardi Gras Indian tradition, they're called the Wild Tapatulas. George Landry led them, and he was known as Big Chief Jolly. Like a lot of people in New Orleans, he had a musical family, but his was exemplary. His nephews were the Neville Brothers, and they backed up Big Chief Jolly's clan, or crew, on this album from 1976. Also on the album was Spy Boy, the name used by Amos Landry. There was Booker Washington, who called himself Trail Chief. Fly Boy was Carl Christmas. The third chief was Thomas Jackson, and Norman Bell was the second chief. With the Neville Brothers as the rhythm section, they made a mighty sound. I'm going to tell you all about the Mardi Gras Indians after I play this song, Brother John, by the Wild Tapatulas.
Shaka move me down here. Shaka move me down here. And if you don't like what the big chief said, you just shaka move me down here. Shaka move me down here. Shaka move me down here. But if you don't like what the big chief said, you just shaka move me down here. Shaka move me down here. Shaka move me down here. If you don't like what the big chief said, you just shaka move me down here. Hey, my brother John is gone. Hey, now, brother John is gone. Well, I remember the morning, remember it well. Brother John is gone. Well, I remember the morning, my brother John fell. Brother John is gone. Well, I told her he died on the battlefield. Brother John is gone. And the rest of his gang won't bow, they won't kneel. Brother John is gone. They talking about brother John is gone. Hey now, brother John is gone. He said mighty cootie fire on a mighty bright day, y'all. Brother John is gone. And whoever wasn't ready had to get out the way. Brother John is gone. He was a mighty brave with a heart of skill. Brother John is gone. He never would bow and he never would kneel. Brother John is gone. Hey, he was singing about brother John is gone. Hey, brother John is gone. Let's sing about brother John is gone. Hey, my brother John is gone. Hey, he did mighty cootie fire on a mighty bright day. Brother John is gone. And whoever wasn't ready had to get out the way. Brother John is gone. He was a mighty, mighty brave. He sang his song. Brother John is gone. That's why his gang still to carry on. Brother John is gone. They still sing about brother John is gone. Oh, I'm a brother John. Keep on singing about brother John is gone. Hey now, brother John.
And there they go, the Wild Tapatulas and Brother John. Mardi Gras came to New Orleans with the French settlers at the beginning of the 18th century. People who lived in the ghetto could never really participate in the typical parade. They started their own type of celebration. they started gangs or crews named after imaginary Indian tribes, using the street names of their ward. These Mardi Gras Indians have existed since at least the mid-1800s. They used Indian names out of respect for the Indians who helped them escape the tyranny of slavery. Mardi Gras used to be a very violent day for the Mardi Gras Indians. It was the day they used to settle scores. It made sense. The police were really busy in the general Mardi Gras confusion, and it was okay to wear a mask because everybody else was. Nowadays, though, the crews are not violent and use the event to compare tribal songs, dances, and the intricate feathered outfits they spend the entire year making. There's a film by Les Blanc called Always for Pleasure that shows the wild Chapatulas creating their costumes and performing in them. And I'll tell you, as good as that record sounds, you gotta see what they look like. That, my friends, is what I call showmanship. There's a theme time radio hour. We're talking about the family, all the folks that come to you asking for money. We got a lot of email, and luckily, one of them seems to be on the subject of today's show. It's from Melanie Whistler. She writes to us from Spokane, Washington. Dear Bob, the shows have been exceptional this year. I copy them and give them to my friends. I know it's illegal, but they really enjoy them. Well, Melanie, I'm complimented, but I can't actually condone that kind of behavior. She continues, perhaps you can help me with the problem. My husband is stricter with our son than he is with our daughter. What should I say to him to make him be more fair? Well, Melanie, that's an interesting question. Parents shouldn't have favorites among their children, but quite often they do. You should forget about trying to convince him that he's being unreasonable. Instead, pose a couple of questions. Does he think his son needs stricter rules than his daughter? Is he perhaps remembering what he did as a child? And how is this strictness affecting the children? I think perhaps the best solution is to do more things as a complete family. Don't separate into small units or teams. The more things you do together, the more he will treat both children equally. I'm sure you guys will work it out. And stop giving my shows away. While we're on the subject of sons and daughters, here's a song about an emotional lion squall. It's by the California band Ralo Kali from their album The Execution of All Things. It's called A Better Son or Daughter.
Sometimes in the morning I am petrified and can't move, awake but cannot open my eyes, and the weight is crushing down on my lungs. I know I can't breathe and hope someone will save me this time. And your mother's still calling you insane and high, swearing it's different this time. And you tell her to give in to the demons that possess her, and that God never blessed her inside. Then you hang up the phone and feel badly for upsetting things
That was A Better Son or Daughter by Rilo Kiley. You hear a lot of blues songs that mention the seventh son. People always wonder what that's about. It's actually the seventh son of a seventh son that has all the mystical powers. The number 7 has always had magical associations. You can find it in the Bible in many places. You also have it in other cultures. The 7 sieges, the 7 sisters, the 7 hills of Rome, the 7 ages of man, 7 stars, 7 wonders of the world, 7 league boots, 77 Sunset Strip, and many others. A person who's the 7th son of a 7th son has powers that are increased geometrically. Many cultures have their own version of it. For example, in Romania, the 7th child is fated to become a vampire. In Ireland, the 7th son of a 7th son is gifted as a healer. You know what? I'm just going to say 7th son from now on for time's sake. In England, that 7th son supposedly healed the deaf, the blind, and the lame. Captains of merchant ships often tried to have a 7th son on board because legend had it that a ship wouldn't sink with a 7th son on board. I don't know if Willie Maybon knew all of that when he sang the song by Willie Dixon, but it sure was lucky for him. It was not his biggest hit. That honor goes to a song called I Don't Know, but he is well remembered for this one, especially around the Mose Allison household. Mose covered it, and it's probably his version you heard. But here's the original, Willie Maybon, on the Chess record label, and the 7th son.
Now everybody's crying about the 7th son. In the whole round world there is only one. I'm the one. Well, I'm the one. I'm the one, I'm the one they call the 7th son. Now I can tell your future before it come to pass. I can do things for you, makes your heart feel glad. I can look in the skies and predict the rain. I can tell when a woman's got another man. I'm the one. I'm the one. I'm the one, I'm the one they call the 7th son. I can hold you close and squeeze you tight. I can make you cry for me both day and night. I can heal the sick and raise the dead. And I can wake your little girl's talk off out of your head. I'm the one. Well, I'm the one. I'm the one, the one they call the 7th son. Sounds so sweet, I'll make your loving heart even skip a beat. I can take you, baby, and hold you in my arms and make the flesh quiver on lovely bones. I'm the one. I'm the one. I'm the one, the one they call 7th son.
He's the one they call the 7th son, Willie Maybon. George Bernard Shaw once said, when our relatives are at home, we have to think of all their good points, or it would be impossible to endure them. Our next selection was written by Richard M. Jones in 1935. We're going to play the version by Cliff Bruner and his Texas Wanderers. And we're going to play this version just because we like Cliff Bruner. Here they are. Bring it on home to Grandma.
To old maids in a folding bed.
Bring it on home to Grandma.
Now one turned over to the other and she said,
Bring it on home to Grandma.
oh, bring it on home, ride it on home, bring it on home to Grandma. Bring it on home, to shove it on home, so it gets home to Grandma. Yeah, ride it on home. Now 2 and 2 is 4 and 4 and 4 is 8.
Bring it on home to Grandma.
You better keep your gal away from my back gate.
Bring it on home to Grandma.
You better bring it on home, ride it on home, bring it on home to Grandma. Bring it on home, just shove it on home, just so it gets home to Grandma.
Yes, sweetheart.
Shove it on home now. Well, me and my gal went huckleberry hunting.
Bring it on home to Grandma.
Then she fell down, then I quit hunting.
Bring it on home to Grandma.
Oh, bring it on home, ride it on home, bring it on home to Grandma. Bring it on home, just shove it on home, just so it gets home to Grandma. Now 2 old maids in a folding bed.
Bring it on home to Grandma.
Now one turned over to the other and she said,
Bring it on home to Grandma.
yeah, bring it on home, ride it on home, bring it on home to Grandma. Bring it on home, just shove it on home, just so it gets home to Grandma.
That was Cliff Bruner and the Texas Wanderers, singing a song also recorded by Bill Wyman, Bring It On Home to Grandma. The question I have is, bring what on home to Grandma? This is Theme Time Radio Hour. Time is running out. I have some family obligations to fulfill, so I'm going to play just one more song before I get out of town. This is by Sly and the Family Stone. It's from an album called There's a Riot Going On. Sly had been around for a long time. He was a disc jockey and a record producer. He even produced songs like Laugh Laugh by the Bull Brummels before starting the Family Stone. This album presents a very different Sly Stone. He wasn't the happy-go-lucky guy who did dance to the music, Everyday People, or Stan. It wasn't the guy you saw at Woodstock. This is a much darker record. Cynical. The sound of milk going sour. It's a weary, skeptical record with a darkness born of drug use. This song was all over the radio, and its power could not be denied. It might have been difficult to make, but the end result was at the top of the charts. Here's Sly and the Family Stone. It's a family affair.
Child grows up to be somebody that just loves to learn, and another child grows up to be somebody you just love to burn. Mom loves the both of them. You see, it's in the blood. Both kids are good and bomb. Blood's thicker than the mud. It's a family affair. It's a family affair. It's a family affair. It's a family affair. What a bear. Newlywed a year ago, still checking each other out. Hey, nobody wants to blow. Nobody wants to be left out. You can't leave cause your heart is there. But you can't stay cause you've been somewhere else. You can't cry cause you look broke down. But you're crying anyway cause you're all broke down. It's a family affair. It's a family affair. Oh, yeah, a family affair.
That was Sly Stone, along with the family. A lot of people showed up to help on that record. There's stories of Bobby Womack, Johnny Guitar Watson, the late Ike Turner, even supposedly Miles Davis coming by. Sly been coming back around lately. His voice was quiet for too long. I hope he's got some more songs in him. We, on the other hand, have no more songs left for this hour.
My, that was fun, wasn't it? Doing things together is fun. It can be in your family, too, whether it's seeing movies or working and playing together in other ways, as other families do. When everyone does his regular job and helps out by doing extra work, then things go better for the whole family, don't they?
We're going to leave you for another week. Expect to see you here. And in conclusion, I'm going in with some family wisdom, courtesy of my favorite detective, Charlie Chan. As the noted detective said in the film Charlie Chan's Secret, best place for skeleton is in the family closet. Or as he said in The Chinese Cat, once you have large family, all other troubles mean nothing. So until next week, take some time with your family. Cherish them. You're not going to be together forever. Hold your family close while you got them. The moments you have with them are precious and few. We'll see you next week with an all-new theme right here on Theme Time Radio Hour. Adios.
Thanks for listening to Theme Time Radio Hour with your host, Bob Dylan. Produced by Eddie Gorodetsky, and the associate producer is Anita Fitzgerald. Continuity is by Eats Martin, and the editor is Damian Rodriguez. The supervising editor is Rob McCumber. The research team is Diane Lapson and Bernie Bernstein, with additional research courtesy of Lynn Sharon and April Hayes, Callie Glavin, Terrence Michael, Sean Patrick, and Matthew Meltzer. Robert Bauer was the librarian, and the production coordinator was Debbie Sweeney. Special thanks go out to Randy Azrati, Coco Shinomiya, Simpson's Diner, and Lee Abrams. Tex Carbone was our director of studio operations. Recorded in Studio B of the historic Abernathy Building, crown jewel of the city's skyline. It's a Greywater Park production in association with Big Red Tree. This is your announcer, Pierre Mancini, speaking. Join us next week when we climb aboard Noah's Ark.
Will the circle be unbroken? By and by, Lord, by and by. There's a better home waiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky.